A few months back, I had the privilege of sitting down with the award-winning and renowned writer and editor, Mr. Joseph Illidge. I met Mr. Illidge when I was lead marketer on the Epiphany Engine, a crossover graphic novel featuring dozens of indie characters, including my own, Luna. I learned so much from him and wanted to have him back on the show to share some of his wisdom with you all. So I hope you enjoy.
My name is Joseph Illidge, groundbreaking writer and editor.
I'm Aaron Perrine, co-host of Phase Hero.
I'm T. Franklin, a Black, queer, disabled, award-winning, best-selling comic book writer.
This is Preach Jacobs, hip-hop artist and founder of Colacon, the nation's only hip-hop comic convention.
Hey, my name is Karla.
Hi, I'm Ebony.
We talk about health, culture,
and comic books.
I listen to.
And I listen to.
Tune into.
You're tuned into.
And I watch Aurora's podcast. And I watch Aurora Comics podcast.
Aurora Comics podcast.
The Aurora Comics podcast.
Aurora Comics podcast.
You guys should be listening to
the Aurora Comics podcast.
Yes, if you're not, there's something wrong with you. There's really something wrong with you. This is the best podcast. It's like parallel to my podcast. It's right there. They're back and forth.
Yes.
Okay.
Here we go. My name is Karla, aka Moon the Storyteller, and I am a wife, a mom, a nurse, a voice actor, and a creator. And I am here with Mr. Joseph Illidge. Ebony sends her love. She wasn't able to make it today. She is on her mom duty today. Her husband is spending some time with his frat brother, so she is on mom duty today. So she just knew she could not take some time out for the interview as much as she wanted to be here. So she sends her love. But I'm here with Mr. Joseph Illidge, and I just want to let the Aurora Comics podcast audience know who this man is, because he's very humble. He's not going to tell you everything that he is been a part of and all his accomplishments, but I'm gonna tell you. All right, so Mr. Joseph Illidge's thought leadership in high-profile IPs, publishing, and media includes groundbreaking work for DC Comics, Image Comics, Simon & Schuster, and Todd McFarlane Productions. With his writing, creative oversight, and project management for a wide variety of clients, Joseph creates and develops top-level multimedia IP for comic books and graphic novels. His production company, Illuminous, announced a deal with 50 Cent's G-Unit Film and Television for a film franchise based on Zero, the DC Comics spy series created by Black Panther writer Christopher Priest. He is the current writer of The Shadow Cabinet for DC Comics, Bloodletter, a new Spawn Universe series for Image Comics, and entertainment mogul Todd McFarlane, the Harriet Tubman middle grade graphic novel from HarperCollins, and co-author of the Judge Kim and Kids Court series of children's graphic novels from Simon & Schuster. His media coverage includes Aurora Comics podcast, The Hollywood Reporter, The Washington Post, The New York Times, Forbes, Business Insider, The Los Angeles Times, CNN, Money, Black Enterprise, and Publishers Weekly. And I think this is where kind of I think everyone knows this, maybe not, but I also want to throw in here that you started your career at Milestone Media, which we'll get into. And you have also been an editor on different runs, such as the Batman line of comics for DC Comics, Catalyst Prime. And I know this is not all, this is a very condensed version of your bio. Joe, I know this is not all the stuff.
A little condensed.
Yeah, this is very condensed. And I can go on and on and on. I can go on and on and on, but I don't want to take up the whole 30 minutes that we spend together will probably be your bio.
Wow. Well, thank you. You're very kind. I appreciate it. It's great to be here, and thank you to Ebony for sending her best wishes from afar, and family first. So I totally get it.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I'm gonna jump right into it. Take us back to the moment you picked up your first comic book or manga.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
My memories would go back to the second grade. My mom was a big soap opera buff, and every Friday after work, we would go to a newsstand, which was 2 blocks away from where we worked. And funny enough, is basically a 10-minute walk from where I live now. And she would buy herself soap opera magazines and she would buy me comics. And so my earliest memories, I think, would be in the second grade. And I was a big DC head. I really started liking, I think, the team books, Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes, All Star Comics with the Justice Society, Justice League of America. And it's probably because I'm an only child, right? But I was really into those team books. And, what happened was it was in the fourth grade, during the fourth grade, that an aunt of mine, when I was visiting family in the Bahamas, bought me a number of comic books, and one of them was an issue of X-Men. And, listen, you're a Black kid living in Brooklyn in the 70s, and someone hands you your first copy of X-Men. That's a game changer right there. And that was a turning point for me. And then I became a Marvel head. And throughout the years, I would go back and forth between the companies in terms of, okay, who's the favorite? But it really goes back to those early days as a kid in the 70s.
Wow. And it does speak to introducing our children to those superheroes. And not just the ones that look like us, just the world of superheroes. And that's why I incorporate comics into my son's homeschool curriculum. And DC now will be selling I guess maybe some of the older comics through Dollar General. So, our Dollar Tree, I believe. So now even more children will be exposed to this world of, aliens and villains and heroes. So, um, that's an incredible memory.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
oh, okay. I thought you were gonna say something.
Nope.
So, my next question is, how did you become a writer slash editor? How did you become this storyteller? Specifically working with mainstream, because most of us get our start in indie, right? And most of us stay indie. What was that first phone call like?
Well, I will say this. It's interesting that you point that out, that most creators these days get their start in indie companies. I started in comics in the 90s when there weren't a lot of indie publishers. Or if there were, they were really on the fringes. It was like, the brothers who were doing Brother Man. And there was one writer, I think his first name was Dwayne, I don't remember, but he did Captain Africa. So you had people doing comic books on the fringes, and it was in the 80s when you had certain independent publishers coming in, like Kamiko and First Comics and publishers like that. I started in 1993 at Milestone, and I started as an intern. So I started working for free. And I entered the program because after seeing a Milestone comic on the stands, it was an issue of Icon number 2 with Icon and Rocket. That just changed everything for me because I never saw comic books that reflected social truth back in me like that Milestone comic did. And seeing that, I knew that I had to be a part of that company by hook or by crook. And so I joined the internship program, and I worked for 3 months, not making any money, because we're talking the early 90s. Internships were not paying. You would get a little bit of a stipend and enough for lunch, but that was basically it. You had enough for lunch and transit money. Mm-hmm. And I lived in a 2-fare zone, and they gave enough transit money for 1 fare. So I was actually losing money every day I was interning at Milestone. I interned there 3 days a week for 3 months. And then after the 3 months was over, Derek T. Dingle, the president, and the founders were kind enough to give me the opportunity to work there as a part-time employee. And I started in the business section. I was the assistant to the president, working closely with Derek Dingle, learning about the business structure of Milestone. And then after a point in time in which I became highly impacted by Dwayne McDuffie, co-founder and editor-in-chief, and saw what editing was and being able to develop and shape the stories and the characters and work with the writers, work with the different creators, I realized that that was my calling. And so I moved over from business to editorial, and Dwayne McDuffie took me under his wing. And so that was the beginning for me. You know, that was what brought me into editorial. I've written some stories through the years, but I wouldn't become what I would say is like an official writer until very recently. But for most of my career, I've been an editor.
I think that's really interesting how you came into this world, because came into the comic book world, because usually what I have found with some of the creators I've interviewed is they get their start as writers, right? And some of them stay writers, or some of them stay artists, and they never really see all the facets that you've seen, because you said that you kind of started as an intern. You started as an intern, and then you went into the business side of it. So you actually was able to learn the business structure, which I think would you say help shape and inform your editorial decisions?
100%. And to be clear, when I started that internship, I did want to be a writer. That was my plan going in, but the job that I was offered was assistant to the president. And I said, okay, this is not a negative, this is a positive. You're going to get an opportunity to understand the business structure and financial structure of a comic book company, right? Which is really important. So I soaked up all that information, and, you know, all four of the Milestone founders, Derek Dingle, Dwayne McDuffie, Dennis Cowan, Michael Davis, I learned so much from them. They're all mentors. And I learned so much from Derek about business and about professionalism. And Derek Dingle bought me my first blazer as an adult. You know, that's the God's honest truth. You know, working for him, I had to dress the occasion. You can't dress in like jeans and sneakers if you're the assistant to the president. You're a reflection of that office. So I was wearing, you know, dress shirts and ties and slacks and shoes, but I did not have a official blazer. I actually wore this Milestone jacket, and I would wear that as my blazer. And one day he took me to Macy's Herald Square, 34th Street, right here in New York. And he bought me a blazer. And that was such a profound gift and such a profound and generous thing for him to do, that when I talk to younger people getting into comics, it's that kind of generosity that inspires me to pay it forward as well.
Wow. That's very interesting. And I think that professionalism is something that I've learned from you.
Thank you.
You know, I do feel I'm one of the, you know, I came into the comic book world as an older woman. So I come with, life experience. And of course, having a job, you have to be mature and react. You cannot react, you respond and things like that. But working with you during Epiphany Engine, which for our audience who isn't aware of Epiphany Engine is, I would say, the largest Black indie crossover event that has ever been done.
100% in comics.
Yeah.
That is 100% fact. And going back to what you were saying, you know, knowing the business did help me as an editor in this sense, not in the sense of helped me as an editor in terms of story, or necessarily in working with creators, but I think understanding the importance of what you're doing, right? So your work has to be of a standard, right? Because the business needs to be able to put that out in the world and say, this is a reflection of our business. So this quality is a reflection of our quality. The principles that these stories have is a reflection of our principles, right? So working in the business section helped me, I think, understand what Milestone's credo was, what Milestone's promise to the world was. And so in working on the stories, that had to be representative of that promise, of that credo, of that sense of identity, you know, that thing which separates Milestone to this day from any other company, right? And so that to me was how those two bridges connected.
Yeah. And it's very evident when I talk to you, the advice you've given me, it's very evident that I think having a firm grasp and understanding of the business side, marketing, financial decisions, editing, that is what is the foundation for good comic book writing, you know, and a good comic book business, a profitable comic book business. And unfortunately, a lot of profit it has to be profitable.
Yep.
Unfortunately, many of us learn that too late, you know. So
yeah, it is true.
Yeah. So I think that would be a good segue to talk about the new book. My comic book shop was sold out because
wow.
What usually happens is if we have a new title, a lot of times I don't, and I'm not quite sure if I know it was sold out because it's good because I just read it.
Oh, thank you.
But I don't know how many they keep on stock, but if it's coming from DC Comics, I would assume that they have a large amount, right? Especially from a writer, you know, Mr. Joseph Illidge, and it's rocket. Like this is not something like 10 issues. This is something like they probably will have, I don't know, 100 issues on the hand. I have no idea what that's all about. But it was sold out. It was sold out.
Wow.
It just came out 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, it's pretty new. And so number one, that's great to hear, right? You know, that the Shadow Cabinet is selling out at certain stores. And yeah, you know, this is a 4-issue series. It is my return to Milestone as a writer. And this is the 21st century Milestone. The first publishing iteration of Milestone was in the 90s. And throughout the years, the Milestone characters would meet the DC characters. The most popular Milestone character is Static from the popular Static Shock cartoon. And for a while, Static was a member of the Teen Titans, and there would be different Static projects throughout the years. And Milestone came back in 2020 with a book called Milestone Return Zero that was digital first and then went to print, but it was digital first. And it was co-written by Reginald Hudlin, who's one of the producers of Milestone Media, one of the owners. And it was co-illustrated by Dennis Cowan, who's one of the original founders and is one of the producers and owners of the present Milestone. And so the Shadow Cabinet, which is my series, which is a 4-issue series, is, I really tell people, think of it like Avengers Endgame, in the way that Avengers Endgame was the culmination point for 10 to 11 years of Marvel movies and all these different story threads and character threads that came together at one point and resolved everything and opened the door to new characters and new stories. That's what the Shadow Cabinet is doing for this 21st century Milestone. So it's a story 4 years in the making. You know, I'm blessed with an amazing creative team. The artist by Daryl Banks and Adagun Ilhan. Daryl Banks is a veteran in comics for over 30 years. Adagun Ilhan is a graduate of the Milestone Initiative. Chris Sotomayor is the colorist. He and I go back to the original Milestone in the 90s. And World Design, which is owned and founded by Darren Bennett, who's a brother. They did the lettering, and the covers are by Dennis Cowan, and inks are either by Prentice Rollins or John Stanisi. Chris Sotomayor colors the covers. Variant covers are by Nicholas Draper Ivy, who's an amazing artist. He did the art for Static Season 1 and Static Shadows of Dakota, which he also co-wrote. He co-wrote Static Shadows of Dakota. So this is a big story. And as you mentioned, the lead is Rocket. Mm-hmm. Rocket is a 17-year-old Black girl who discovered an alien on Earth who had been living there for hundreds of years. And it turned out he was living as a wealthy Black man who was an attorney. And when she discovered this superhuman on Earth, she was angry that he wasn't out there using his powers to help people. Why was he disconnected from society? And she compelled him through her passion and her strong desire for some change in the world. She compelled him to become a superhero. He took on the name Icon. She became his sidekick, Rocket. And they tried to change the world in a very vertical, straight line way. It's like, okay, let's destroy the drug trade. Let's destroy the illegal gun trade. And those are really big ideas. So, of course, they came across a lot of challenges. And at the last Milestone storyline that came out a year ago called Icon versus Hardware, which had Icon fighting Hardware, who's another major character in the Milestone universe, Brainiac, who's Superman's villain, who's like this artificial intelligence from space, tried to destroy the world. The heroes beat him back, but there were consequences. And so now it's 6 months later, and Rocket is the only superhero. She's the only person out there day and night fighting the fight. And so this is a story about Rocket. It's her journey in this new world. You're slowly going to learn what happened to the other heroes. And Rocket is writing a letter to her mother. Mm-hmm. And so it's through that letter that we are learning what life has been like for her, what it's like doing this day in, day out, having no life, and that it's taken a toll on her, right? But that's her human connection. The digital diary entries to her mom is her human connection, and it's the reader's entry into this story.
And it pulled us in right away.
Thank you.
Didn't pull no punches with the very first scene.
Yeah, that's
pops off.
That's a wild one. That involves another character named Angela Alva, and she's on a journey too. And what her journey is will be revealed in time, but you can see she's basically the new boss in town. Mm-hmm. And she is gathering her soldiers, and she will not take any disrespect, as you saw. Mm-hmm. And so Rocket is the main character, and I would say Angela is the second main character of the story. And they're going on these separate tracks in the same direction.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the storytelling is complex.
Yes.
And only a few people can actually pull it off. That I have in the indie world, one, but also in mainstream media, because you're telling two stories, as you mentioned, kind of two storylines in one.
Yes. Yes.
But the other characters that you have introduced, I don't want to give anything away, also has their own story. And it's very evident within 2 or 3 panels. Oh my gosh, I want to know what happened to them. I want to know what's been going on with them. And I know that you're going to weave those storylines in as well. But it takes a very skilled writer, but also I can tell that you have a background in edit and as an editor, because like I said, I could that takes a lot of work. And
yes,
the skill
yes,
that you in the dialogue is like she's writing this letter, but even the dialogue is, I can't describe it. It's like it's every line is intentional. Every panel is there for a reason. The details, the devil's in the details, because I
you,
know I was like, okay, he put this in here for a reason. He put this in here for a reason. I know it's gonna come back. It's gonna come back. So
yes,
even
yes,
what the action that what they're doing that you're not paying attention to because you're paying attention to the dialogue, what they're doing is go. I'm like that is storytelling right there. And that's something you see. Those are the type of TV shows that my husband and I love to binge watch when you have
yeah.
multiple storylines kind of that gel together into one cohesive theme. And it's amazing to watch. It's amazing to read, amazing to watch. And I appreciate you sending me the PDF because like I said, there's my comic book shop was sold out. So I ordered it and they're gonna call me when it comes in.
Oh, that's good.
Um,
That's good.
yeah,
Well,
but
thank you so much. I appreciate, the kind words. And you're right, being an editor helped make me a better writer. But also, my editorial mentors are some of the legendary writers in comics, like Dwayne McDuffie, God rest his soul, will always be one of the best writers in comics. Denny O'Neil, when I went to the Batman editorial department, where I was the first editor of color on Batman in 1998, Denny O'Neil, God rest his soul. Unfortunately, these legends have gone beyond the mortal coil. One of the best writers in comics, legends. So I learned from the best, and I've helped shepherd writers, and I learned from them. I mean, Brandon Thomas, that guy's an inspiration. Amy Chu, Christopher Priest, who's a good friend of mine. Christopher Priest will always be an inspiration. G. Willow Wilson, Greg Rucka. I could go on for a week, but but part of it is I've lived long enough that in me is an understanding of story through all of these experiences. And with story, to me, the most important thing is a character that you care about, right? There has to be a character on a journey, and you have to care about that character. That character must become human for you. And so Rocket is the most grounded superhero in the Milestone universe. And she's one of my favorite Milestone heroes and probably one of my 10 favorite superheroes, period. And so getting to write her was an honor and a blessing and a joy. And she was the perfect entryway to get into her head, to get into her heart, because she also wants to be a writer. That's how she wants to tell her stories, and, again, working with such great artists, they really bring the story to life in a way that good and great artists make writers look better.
Artists and storytellers. They should be storytellers.
That's just a fact, right? Because they're doing the heavy lifting, right? The writing is foundational, but in terms of who spends the most time at the table, who's doing the most heavy lifting, it's the artist, right? And so, Daryl and Adagoon are amazing storytellers, being able to have both their styles in one book, but we did it in a way that it meshed really well. And that's in part to working with Marquise Draper, who's the editor at DC, who is the Milestone editor. And so we worked very closely on this. And, the big story is something that had to be created before I could write the first issue. When, everyone got together behind the scenes, it was Reginald Hudlin and Dennis Cowan and Reginald Hudlin's assistants and Chris Conroy, executive editor of Milestone, executive editor at DC, Marquise Draper, editor, and myself. And we had this 1-hour conversation about, okay, well, what does this story need to be for the Milestone universe? And walking away from that conversation, 2 weeks later, I came back and I wrote a 21-page pitch. That is the entire story from a 10,000-foot view, from the very first moment to the very last moment. I needed to see it that way, right? And then with a few notes, that ended up getting approved. And so when I would start writing any given issue, I would go to the outline. Now, part of what happens in writing is things change along the way. You know, there's the saying, man plans and God laughs. Well, that's not only in life, that's also in writing. You think things are going to go one way, and the characters and the stories start telling you that they should be going in other directions, which is a great thing, because that's when you know your characters have some sort of depth to them. And that's when you know your story has some potential to it, that it could go outside of the lines that you originally conceived. And so, yes, different things that you're seeing are going to pay off because there is a superstructure. And I knew that when I wrote it. And there are different things happening in this story. Like, you know, one very important scene, which will pay off later, is when Angela goes and recruits this woman named Tiffany Evans. And Tiffany Evans used to work at this tech company for a billionaire. And the billionaire, for a number of reasons, because Tiffany spoke out publicly against that billionaire, the billionaire tried to have Tiffany assassinated, failed, but blacklisted Tiffany so she could never get any work in the tech sector, right? So Angela Alva comes and she wants to make amends for what her family did. And so she offers Tiffany basically like the job of a lifetime, right? And that's an important moment because it's going to pay off. It's very important to the Milestone mythology. But also, I wanted to just have a moment there to kind of communicate how Black women treat each other in business versus how other people treat Black women in business, or other women treat Black women in business. I wanted this moment where one Black woman recognizes that another Black woman was done a true injustice and said, okay, listen, that's a debt that can never be repaid, but let me take a shot at it, right? And those are always those little human moments that, again, pull you in and make you care. And so, you know, for me, it's really about pulling out the humanity of all of these characters, whether we think they're villains or heroes, but all of them have some core of humanity.
I'm looking at the fire department. I think they're doing their little Christmas run. They are loud out there.
Well, I'm not hearing it, but I know exactly what you mean. My office is right by this street, and there's so many people double parking, and there's honking and stuff like that. And during the summer, the ice cream truck always wants to kind of make its entrance. So no worries, all good.
Can hear it. Okay, good. Well, I mean, I by the time this show airs, like I hopefully we'll have all 4 issues. But I don't see how you can tell this story in 4 issues though. Like I mean, I don't. It has to be a cliffhanger. It has to. You gonna leave us with a cliffhanger. That's what you're gonna do. I already know it.
It's a big story, and what I will say is that, number one, every issue will have a cliffhanger. And the stakes get higher as we go. And, you know, the end of the story is the beginning of a new story. And what that's going to be, you know, you'll find out on the last page of issue 4. But each issue is 30 pages. So we got an extra 8 pages or an extra 10 pages beyond what the average comic book these days is. So all together, it's 120 pages. So it's a story of substance. And when it gets collected, I'm going to be very proud of that, as proud as I am of the individual issues coming out. But no, we figured out a way, but it's going to be a real drama getting there. And you're going to see people put through some paces, and, you know, not everyone is going to come out of this good and fine. You know, that's because that's not even life. Right. So if that's not life, how can it be the story? Or people will get some resolution, but it's not necessarily the resolution you think it's going to be. So, it's a journey for everyone. So, but Rocket's
drama.
journey is the one at the center.
The drama of it all. But that's why we love comic books. We love comic books because it takes us to places, it pulls and pushes at us. So I can't wait. I'm following this series along with the new Storm run.
Yes. Yes.
But if I had to choose between the two, I love me. We love us some Aurora. And we had Mr. Adole on the show.
Oh my goodness.
That will also premiere around the same time this show premieres. But
great.
If I had to choose, I say your action line, your storyline is pulling me in more.
Wow. Yeah. All right. Well, listen,
I love me some Storm. Now
we all do. We all love the Wind Rider. I mean, your podcast is named after her.
Yes.
So,
this writing, this storytelling is, and I think I love this storytelling because it's something that I cannot do. And when I'm not comparing myself to Mr. Adole at all. I'm not saying that at all. But his storytelling is very distinct. It's pulled from the nuances of his culture, and it's something that we love. That's why we love Marvel, because they have a brilliant storytellers. His storytelling is linear, but so it pulls from. It has flashbacks. It has this. It has that.
Sure.
Your storytelling is layered, meaning there's multiple storylines that are cohesively told together,
right?
To evoke this certain emotion that I'm just like, you cannot do this in 4 issues. You're not going to get this done.
It's tough.
You're not going to get this. Yeah, so it's just different ways of storytelling. But if I had to choose, like, if I only could read one type of story, at this moment, it's going to be the Shadow Cabinet. I was pleasantly surprised at how, because I'm a Marvel girl. But
yeah.
With this new series, I gotta go back. I need to go back and listen. I need to go back and get familiar with Static, Icon, and Rocket. Because you reread the one issues here and there, but I said, let me go back here and see what these characters were doing. How we get here.
Wow. So, well, number one, beating Storm is a big honor. I think that's my honor for the month. Because it's Storm.
Yeah. And I love Storm, and I love Mr. Adole's run. I do.
Yeah.
So far, because he did give us an advanced copy of issue 2, and so I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to be a brilliant and amazing. And both stories are incredible. But the way you tell this story, everybody needs to take notes. Everybody needs to. I'm serious.
You're very kind. I mean, listen,
you have elevated elevated the way I consider writing, and I don't know necessarily if the layered approach will work well for my story, because it's only focused on Luna. Like, it's only focused on my main character.
Got you. Yeah, but that may be a different kind of a thing. Yeah.
For volume 2, once we know Luna, like, okay, Luna, we know we got her. We know who she is. We know what she's capable of. But when I introduce these other characters and focus on these other characters, I'm like, okay, Mr. Illidge, I need to pay this fee, and I need you to look at this book and let me.
All right. Very good. Yeah, because then you'll be building your ensemble cast.
Exactly.
Right. So that's what we have. We have an ensemble cast with the Shadow Cabinet, and they're all. You just have to love all the characters. It's so funny. Like, Rocket is my favorite character, period. But I love Angela Alva.
Yeah,
I love her. And when you're writing characters, or even when you're editing characters, I really get attached to them. So when I was an editor and I edited Birds of Prey, they weren't Oracle and Black Canary to me. They were Dinah and Babs, right? And it's like, I'm your caretaker right now. You're Dinah and Babs. So Angela Alva is Angie to me. I call her Angie, and I love her to bits. and Anansi, who came from the Static Shock cartoon, who appears in I Love Him. So it's like, I love all these characters, and getting to introduce them to a world in a way that pulls you in is great. Another great thing about the comic, which you saw, is they have a page called Previously in a Milestone Universe, right? So if you've never read a Milestone comic, you can read that page and just get a sense of the landscape. And if you have, but you haven't seen these characters in a while, you get yourself refamiliarized. I wrote the story in a way where I wanted you, it's funny, I told you earlier that my mom bought herself soap opera magazines when she bought me comics. Now, I was a voracious reader, so I read her soap opera magazines and I watched soap operas. So in my teen years and my just post-college years, I was a big soap opera head. And two of the things that you get from soap operas is, number one, no matter what episode you watch, you're able to find your footing and then get moving, right? And the second thing is the capacity to balance different storylines at once, and characters intersect with one another and affect one another. And so I would say both of those qualities, I've brought to Shadow Cabinet as a writer. If this is your first Milestone comic and you had not read that previously page, you can dive right in and get your footing and get going, right? And balancing the different storylines. And right now, seems separate, but this is what's going to start happening, and then that happens, and then it's one story, right? It's not like 6, it's one. So that's going to be part of the fun. And I really would like everyone to come along for the ride with this book. The team and I really, we really wanted to fire on all cylinders with this, because Milestone is such an important company in this industry. And, Shadow Cabinet selling well, selling out, will send a message to DC Comics, a very practical message that we want more of this. Part of, a problem in our industry is people say they want things, and then when the things come out, they don't buy them. So then it's harder for those things to continue coming out. But then they say, where are the things I want? Do you want them?
But
right? Or do you want the world you want, but do you not want to have to do the work to help get the world that you want, right? And this is a very core thing. But in the very basic example of Shadow Cabinet, how Shadow Cabinet sells and is talked about and is engaged determines to some degree the future of more Milestone books, which is another reason why it was very important for us to do a story of magnitude here.
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. And I'm going to say this because, right, when you get the product in front of you, some people aren't willing to support it. But you did what a lot of creatives don't do. And that's your pre-launch marketing was top notch. Like you didn't let us forget that this is coming out in November. You started promoting this early summer, maybe early.
That's right. Because it was announced at my career panel at San Diego Comic-Con. And then once I was able to publicly state that, then I was like, okay, like, this is all Shadow Cabinet all the time. I took a few breaks to promote Black Lightning, because that's a very important comic that also needs to be supported. But no, thank you for that, because it was important for me to really treat this like an event. And how does Marvel treat their movies? They lead you in. And it's like, okay, I'm going to lead you in. And then the final thing I did was I wrote and edited and financed wrote, directed, and financed the trailer that you saw. There was a trailer that I made for the Shadow Cabinet, which DC gave me notes on, but they were behind it. But I did that trailer with the editor and the music director, and I put my money where my mouth was. You know, that was not for free. I paid someone for us to work on that because that's how much I believe in what this book is. That's how much I believe in the work that myself and the creative team and the producers and the publishers did. And I said, hey, you know, let's represent ourselves at the same exact level. Marvel makes trailers, DC makes trailers, Marvel Studios makes trailers, DC Studios makes trailers. Okay, Shadow Cabinet is going to have a trailer the day it launches, you know, and that's what we have to do. We have to go that extra step for the work that we do, that we believe in.
Yep. You're absolutely correct. And you know me. I've learned the psychology behind selling, and what you did for Shadow Cabinet, you know, I think think in part contributed to, okay, I can't get the book at my local comic book shop. I have to order it. It's sold
Right.
out, you know.
Okay.
So
there you go.
So
there you go.
I'm gonna just ask you this, because we talked about the book for the most of the interview, which was not my intention, but I just, you know, I love a good story, and I love it when skilled storytellers are sharing and dropping gems, because I learned so much. This interview was for me, y'all, not.
For everyone, it's a fringe benefit,
audience,
but this
interview was for me.
All right, so, there you go.
Okay, my final question is, you know, obviously we can support you by buying the Shadow Cabinet, and it does not escape me that you decided to title the book The Shadow Cabinet. So just if that gives you that, I hope that's not a spoiler, but
no, it's part of it, and it goes back to the old Milestone, but there's a very particular meaning that will become clear as we go along. And one other thing, for, you know, you people out there that really know like Black music from like the 60s and the 70s and earlier, every issue's title is a title of Black music. So the first issue is titled "A Change Is Gonna Come." That's Sam Cooke. Mm-hmm. Keep reading. As you see the other issues, they're gonna have titles, and you may know what I'm referencing. So that was something that Dwayne McDuffie did in Milestone in the 90s. He brought in a lot of references from, you know, like Parliament and Funkadelic and the music that he loved. And so I wanted to do that in the Milestone tradition.
Wow. So my last question is, like I said, you obviously buying the Shadow Cabinet, that's how we can support you. But tell us where you are on social media so everyone can follow your pages.
Sure. Thank you very much. I am Joe Illidge. My last name is spelled Illidge. I'm Joe Illidge on Facebook. I am Joseph P. Illidge, I think, on Blue Sky. Joseph P. Illidge on Twitter. I am Illmaster1 on Instagram. I am Joseph Illidge on TikTok, and Joseph Philip Illidge on LinkedIn. The only platform I'm not on, to my knowledge, is Threads, and I'm like, I have a limit, but I'm on 5 to 6. So
oh my gosh, you would blow up on Threads.
Oh my God.
Listen,
Karla,
but listen, let me tell you why. Let me tell you why Threads, because
Threads, you're gonna convince me now.
Because let me just, and people think that, you know, narrative storytelling with your words is underrated, but obviously, you know, that's not the case. Look how many views I got. 498K.
Oh my God.
In 38. And that's because I've leaned into storytelling. Can you imagine how many followers and how many interactions you would have just by saying, hey, back in 1993, I was an intern at Milestone.
Oh, Karla. Okay, now.
Here's my 3 or 4. This is my thread about how you, do you realize, come on.
All right. Listen, you're making me think about it, because I did not consider it, but you and your expertise and what you're saying, you have me considering it, because, you know, at the end of the day, It's really about, I'd like to think, legacy, right? And I am a child of the legacy of Milestone. Like, that's just a fact. And so if I could leave behind a legacy that could be, oh man, a fraction of what Milestone did, then that would, that would make it all for something. So yeah. So okay, I'm gonna walk away from this, and after dinner tonight with friends, I'm gonna start exploring Threads. And if I get on, my first entry will be like, "This is because of the Aurora Comics podcast."
Yes,
I am here.
Before I let you go, I just want to tell you, if this type of story blows up on Threads, can you imagine the stories you have? So I told a story about just me and my husband during our lunch break. That's it. It got 141,000 views.
Oh my God. How is that possible?
I'm just telling you.
How is that possible?
I don't know, but people love true, rare stories. That's how we are. We love stories. And so I told this really simple little simple story. It had 2 parts to it. So I had one little part, and then I did the ... so people could go down, and I did another reply, finish the story. 141,000 views. So I just want to,
wow.
I'm telling you, Threads is so much fun. Threads is so much fun, and that is like a really easy way to connect to new audiences. So I just put that out there. If I'm getting half a million views, can you imagine how many views you would get?
Listen, I will take what I can get. Yeah. But I'm hearing what you're saying, and you know what? You're right. Like, everyone loves stories. That's at the core of our culture. I feel like that's one of the best things that humanity has given itself. And that's part of the reason why I love what I do. And I learned it from people who were masters of story, and they totally gave me a purpose. So I'm thrilled to be able to share with the world through the Shadow Cabinet and other things that are coming up.
Yep. Come on. You once you dive into Threads.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very.
I will let you know how it goes.
Yeah, and tag us on your first thread, so we like
that's happening. That's happening.
All right. Well, thank you so much for spending an hour of your time.
You're welcome. I didn't even realize it was that long. It kind of flew by.
I looked. I was like, at 2:20. I looked. I said, okay, I'm gonna ask him 2 more questions, and then here we go. But the book, I'm telling you, that book is amazing. The story is amazing. If you have not picked up the book, you are missing out. By the time this
here it is, right here. This is the first issue. There's our hero Rocket right in the center there. And go to your local comic book shop, ask for this, and I hope you dig it.
And if they don't have it, if they're sold out, you can order it.
That's right. Tell them, hey, I want that book. You need to get some more copies in here. Exactly. You can totally tell them to do that.
So, all right. I will talk to you later. I know we still got some work to do on the Epiphany engine.
100%. That's going to be a big thing for next year.
Yeah. So you take care, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for watching. Talk soon.
Bye.